Morning, 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 morning. Actually, afternoon. I'm a bit tardy today. Apologies for that. Deadline day as a writer is always a weird and chaotic day, but I do love it. So before we crack on with today, a quick word about yesterday's 26-minute mammoth How to Be Funny episode. I'm not going to apologise for doing a longer episode because if you're going to learn how to be funny in a way that is unique and creative and different from everybody else, you need to do it properly. And there's a reason that, top flight comedians, the ones on Netflix, they earn £3 or maybe even £4 an hour. And there's a reason for that. So I make no apologies for that. And one of the things I didn't talk about yesterday, I made a case for why humour is a good thing to kind of try and insert in your business. But as remote working gets even more prevalent, they're talking about with 5G that doctors will be able to perform minute, precise surgical operations on the other side of the planet. That's how crazy things are getting. So if doctors can remotely operate on other human beings, people like me, copywriters, performers, fitness people and cartographers, we should all be worried about this. And it should be the kick in the backside that we need to make us realise that we need to give people a reason to choose us. And humour is just one of the ways of doing that. And it's a pretty simple way. And as I said yesterday, it's more about being fun, light-hearted than being hilarious. So just one thing I wanted to start with. If you haven't listened to yesterday's episode or watched yesterday's episode, go back and have a look because it's a good way of starting out on learning how to be funny. And like I say, humour is just one of the ways you can encourage people to choose you. And makes your life a little bit easier. You'd have to sell yourself on price as much. So with that being said, let's crack on with today. Let's try and make today's a little bit shorter. Deadline day, remember. So today, well, given the fact I've just talked about the fact that you need to be different and separate yourself from the rest of the competition, today's going to seem like a little bit of a paradox because I'm going to talk about how you should become a box ticker. Now, the first thing I should say is that I am terrible at giving life advice. I'm trying to imagine if there's anybody worse on the planet that immediately comes to mind at giving life advice. But honestly, there's probably a serial killer somewhere who's worse at giving advice than me. But let's just presume, just so we kind of cover it nicely, that I'm the worst person on the planet to give advice. Okay? So with that in mind, I'm going to give you some advice. So I wrote an email to my list this week that talked about why I became a magician. And I've never had any desire to be famous or mobbed in the street or anything like that. To me, it always came down to one question. Could I entertain a room full of strangers? Could I be the guy that could walk into any room on the planet and make people laugh? So it's like the meta skill behind it. So I talked about that in my email this week. And I realised that there's lots of things you can do to make your life easier. And I always seem to come back to this idea of ticking boxes. How many boxes does this tick? So I'll use this as an example. So as a magician, first off, being out in the real world, in front of strangers, performing live and getting immediate feedback, ticked a lot of boxes. And it's similar for this. So I'm the last person who should probably be making videos and audios and stuff like that. But it ticks a lot of boxes for me. So here are a few of the boxes this one task of just looking into a camera and talking to you. Yes, you. Here's what I get out of that. Here's how many boxes that ticks for just like a short video. I've written them down because my memory is appalling. So the first one is I get to repurpose the content. So I get to film it as a video. I've got an app on my phone that strips it into audio so I can upload it to Anchor and that spreads it out in a podcast form. So I've got video, I've got audio. If I had my wits about me, I'd probably use Otter or Rev, get it transcribed so I've got like a free lead magnet or a blog post or social content. But for now, I'm happy with video and audio because I kind of want to see how it works. So I've got video and audio. I can use those for social posts and I post them on all my social media channels. I don't give a monkeys about likes, shares, retweets, hearts and whatever else goes on social media. I genuinely don't. I'd much rather just get into the habit of showing up. And this is something you'll see throughout this entire list. It ticks boxes, but it's not based on outcomes. So I did a series ages ago called Dear John on the John, where I would sit in that room over there and make silly videos giving advice, and I would edit it. And again, that was more about me learning how to show up on camera and edit video on my phone. I thought that was a good skill to learn, and the best way to learn it would be to show up and do it. Now, those videos didn't get a lot of likes. In fact, there's probably a couple of them that on the YouTube channel didn't get any views at all. But here's why I don't give a monkeys about that. Those videos actually landed me one of my copywriting jobs with an agency. And I know this because when I sent off my application, I sent a link to the videos, and the first email I got back began, Dear John of Dear John on the John. So I know those videos had the impact I was after, because at the end of the day, it's out there and people can see them. I don't need millions of people to see them. I just need the right people to see them, whenever that is. So that's why I really don't give a monkeys about listens, plays, retweets, likes, because it sounds a bit grand to say I'm building up like a body of work, but I am. Eventually, I just want a bunch of stuff that if somebody comes along and says, I might want you to work for me, I can point them in a direction and say, look, this is what I've built. So that's what I'm after. So it ticks the social box, and I can put out content. Even if I just did this one video and just posted it out, I could break it down into 60-second snippets with highlights. If there are highlights, I don't think there are. But for now, I'm happy with just the full-length video and the audio going out. The other thing is, like the Dear John and the John thing, it gets me used to showing up on camera and learning how to talk into a camera, which is a weird meta skill. Most people freeze, and going live is just a weird thing, but for me, this is something I really want to learn. I think video is going to be a really powerful medium. It's going to get more powerful, so I need to show up on camera. And the best way I know from magic and comedy, the best way I know of getting comfortable on camera is putting in the reps. So here I am. There's video editing as well. I don't do much video editing, but you know, doing these videos helps me just get familiar with the program, even if it's just trimming the beginning and the end. I'm just familiar with the system and I'm looking around. I'm just a little bit more au fait with it. And again, it comes down to having a bodywork that I can point to that is a fair reflection of me. So I'm not going to talk about it'll get me clients or anything like that. I'm pretty certain it might do at some point, that they'll see either the audio or video of this and go, yeah, he seems like a decent guy. But either way, that'll come from creating something that is a fair reflection of me and just putting it out there. So that's an important box for me to tick. If I'm showing up teaching you guys something and having to explain something to you, then it forces me to learn. I can't just sit on my backside and hope that these things will happen. I have to really put in the conscious effort to, you know, watch courses, read blogs, read books, you know, tear myself away from Poirot because I need to talk to you about something and I need to teach it. So it forces me into a productive habit of always be learning. There's always something new to learn, so it'll keep the ego in check. And there's this idea, there's an MMA fighter called, I think it's Frank Shamrock, who talks about this concept of plus, minus and equals. He says, whatever you do in life, you should always have somebody who's better than you to learn from. You should always have somebody who's equal to, that kind of spurs you on. And you should always have somebody who's not beneath you, but you know what I mean. Somebody who knows a little bit less than you so you can teach them. And there's I think it's Richard Feynman who said that you never really know anything until you actually try and teach it to somebody else. So that again, me showing up on camera, ticks that box for that. I've got other things like it helps me get better. It keeps me on track with my audience. My mind goes crazy. So I'll learn one thing, then I'll veer off onto another tangent, then I'll go onto another tangent and another tangent. And before you know it, I've gone from learning how to write a killer headline to memorizing the Venezuelan football team from 1964. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So this, having to show up and imagine I'm talking to my perfect client every single day, keeps me on track and know that I'm being helpful, or at least trying to be helpful. And that's the other thing as well. You know, this is free. I'm not charging for this. I'm not making demands. I put a link into my email list below and a few things that you might find helpful, but that's it. So I'm doing something that I genuinely think is actually trying to help people out. Whether it does or not, it's not life-changing. I'm not curing COVID or cancer or anything like that, but I'm just kind of showing up and giving something that I hope will help somebody else's life a little bit better. And that, I'm not very woo-woo about stuff like that, but it puts a smile on my face that I've at least contributed to the world a little bit in my own unique way. And what else? Oh yeah. So you got the kind of being the kind of person that contributes, and that's defined by the fact that you actually show up. But the last thing was, sometimes it's worth asking, if I only did one thing today, would I still feel like today was productive if I did this? And this, talking to you right now, feels like that kind of thing. It feels like if I only did one thing today, if I was a millionaire and I didn't worry about money and I didn't need clients or anything like that, if I only showed up and did a video and talked to you and gave you some advice, would I feel like I'd done good? And I think I would. As I sat back in the evening with my smoking jacket, my cup of coffee, my Poirot box set, I think I would feel pretty darn good that, I'd done a little bit of good in the world. So that's a lot of boxes to tick from just putting on a microphone, hitting record and posting a video. It's a lot. And I think sometimes there's so many things we can be doing. And it's kind of like the 80-20 principle about some things count more than others. Sometimes when there's so many things you could be doing, it's worth just asking yourself, how many boxes does this tick? Does it tick more boxes of things I care about? Will it help make my life better in any way or most ways? And then go with the thing that ticks the most boxes. But again, I feel the need to remind you that I am terrible at giving life advice. You shouldn't pay attention to me, and you should probably burn your ears after listening to this episode. But yeah, whenever you're stuck with wondering what to do, just run it through the box ticking exercise. How many ways does this help make your life and the people around you's life more awesome? Hope you found that useful. Short one today. Thank the Lord. But I will see you soon with another helpful hint, hopefully.